Hi there, welcome again to Seekers and Cynics, a weekly look at the Christian faith, trying to answer some of your questions and to help people understand the message of Jesus for today. And each week recently I've been working through a little series called What Did Jesus Mean? And each week we've taken one of the sayings of Jesus, often something that people will have heard and will know, and then tried to understand what did Jesus mean. And this week I want to look at that saying where Jesus says, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. You will know the truth and the truth will set you free. We find it in John's Gospel in chapter 8 verse 32. If you want to check it out and the surrounding verses. And so the question is, what did Jesus mean? Let's think about that word truth for a start before we think about its results. Jesus said, you will know the truth. What was he talking about? What is it that we would know? Well, we need to just look back one verse to see what Jesus is talking about. And he says this. He says, if you hold to my teaching, then you are really my disciples. If you hold to my teaching, then you're really my disciples, and then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The truth that Jesus is referring to is his teaching. The truth that Jesus is referring to is his teaching. And his teaching is focused on himself and who he is and what he can do for us if we are in relationship with him. His truth, his teaching is about who he is, his values, his ways, and all the blessings and goodness that he brings to us and can offer to us if we are in relationship with him. And he says that if we hold to his teaching, if we hold to what he says, to hold to it means to believe it. It starts with belief, but it also means to obey it. Belief has to lead into action. That if we hold to his teaching, if we believe it and we obey it, then we'll be true disciples and we'll know the truth. So that truth is the whole package of Jesus' teaching, God's values, God's ways, who God is, who we are, and what God can do for us. And Jesus says if we have that teaching and we hold on to it, then we'll know the truth, and that truth will set us free. Free? Are we not free already? Free from what? 4 things. First of all, it'll set us free from fear. If we know Jesus, if we hold to his teaching, if we walk with him, if we trust and obey, then he says we need not be afraid. There is nothing that can separate us then from the love of God. There is nothing that we need fear. Jesus said, man can destroy the body, but our soul is safe with God. Moreover, he is with us in all of life's ups and downs and struggles, difficulties and good times. We know that he is with us if we've put our hand in his. We need never fear if we know the truth of Jesus. We are set free from fear. Secondly, we're set free from self. So many lives are so easily, and I can speak for myself, I'm not pointing the finger at anybody, blighted by selfishness. We so easily fall into living for self. Some people do that openly and give into it, if you like. They're blatant. Look after number one, I'm going to put myself first, and our world of celebrity is full of that. But even I find when we try not to do that, it's so easy for self to take the driving seat. And that doesn't lead to an attractive life. Jesus says that if we know the truth of who he is, and if we put our hand in his and we begin to trust and obey, then we will find freedom from the cords of self, and a greater freedom to live selflessly, and a greater freedom to be the people we were meant to be, to grow up and to become as we ought to be, not to be trapped. Self is a small world. It's a small world in which we can be trapped, and Jesus wants to set us free from that. Thirdly, brings freedom from other people. Other people can put great many expectations and barriers around us and on our lives. If you look at the life of Jesus, he was completely free from the opinion of others. He did not care one jot what anybody said or thought. And that is as long as we aren't deliberately being rude or nasty, that is a great freedom to have. To live for what is right, to live for what is true, without a care for somebody's criticism or whatever. And when we have Jesus Christ in our hearts, when we are his disciples, when we've put his truth at the very centre of our lives, there is a great freedom from the pressures of our world and our culture and our peers and our family and whatever else, because we've got a higher priority. We know what is true, and we've set our hearts to live for that, and we put our hand in his. We are free from other people, and finally we are set free from sin. If you look this passage up and you read a couple of verses on, Jesus unpacks this idea of freedom. He says anyone who sins is a slave to sin. Anyone who sins is a slave to sin. This is verse 34. But if the Son sets you free, you'll be truly free. Free indeed. Jesus is teaching that sin has the ability to trap us. We see that most obviously with addiction. Addiction is the sort of tip of the iceberg where we see how clearly that somebody who has given in to certain desires or certain pleasures becomes bound by them. And it's obvious to see that in those cases. But it's true at a level for all of us that when we sin, when we insist on doing what we want and going our own way, that actually that becomes a mechanism in our lives which begins to control us and to take over. And Jesus wants us to be free from that. He wants us to be free to live as God wants, not to be controlled by the control of what the Bible calls the sinful nature, that part of us that insists on moving away from God and on doing what I want to do. And Jesus says if we sin, we're effectively a slave to sin. But if the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed. And if we allow Jesus Christ and his truth the right place in our lives, there comes with that freedom from sin. Jesus gives us the power to overcome those addictions and those other bondages to sin and to self which would take us away from God. He brings the freedom to live for purity, for holiness, for a higher goal. Yes, we'll trip up. Yes, we'll fall. The Christian life is not perfection and can never be perfection because we have feet of clay and we live in a world where we still get things wrong. And I still sin, and the Bible offers forgiveness in those circumstances. But the Bible is clear that the Christian need not sin. There has been a breaking of the chain. We are set free from that old nature which can't help itself. And we are given the opportunity to live for God, to live in freedom, to live in holiness. We are set free. You'll know the truth, Jesus says. If you're my disciples, if you hold on to my teaching, if you put it first in your life, then you'll know that truth, and that truth will bring freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from self, freedom from the opinions of other people, and freedom from sin itself. What's not to like? I'll see you next time.